2 years had passed since Emeka lost everything. 2 years since the ancestors took back their blessing and left him with nothing but seeds and wisdom. 2 years of working with his hands, rebuilding his life one brick at a time, finding peace in simplicity. But the story wasn't over, because while Emeka had learned his lesson, there was someone who hadn't. Someone who thought he'd gotten away with the perfect betrayal. Someone who believed the ancestors' justice had limits. Chibuike was about to discover how wrong he was. Before we go any further, can I ask you for a small favor? This story took me days to write, record, and edit. Every frame, every emotion, every sound. It cost you nothing to support me. But it truly means everything to me. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you have not, and comment your location below. I want to know where my amazing viewers are watching from. I read every comment, and I will be giving shout-out in my next video. Shout-out to these my amazing subscribers: Doll from California, Felicia Morrison from Jamaica, and David from Nairobi. Now, let me tell you what happened to the man who thought he could steal from the ancestors and walk away free. Chibuike had everything now. The mansion in Banana Island bigger than Emeka's had ever been. 7 bedrooms. Indoor pool. Garden so manicured it looked artificial. Staff in matching uniforms. Security that could rival a president's detail. He drove a different luxury car every day of the week. Wore watches that cost more than most people's houses. Had a girlfriend who looked like she walked off a magazine cover and treated him like he walked off Mount Olympus. To the world, Chibuike was a self-made success story. An entrepreneur, an investor. A man who'd risen from nothing through hard work and smart decisions. But you and I, we know the truth. Every naira in his account was blood money, stolen through betrayal, built on the broken trust of his childhood friend, and the ancestors. The ancestors were watching. They always are. It started with the dreams, small at first, easy to dismiss. Chibuike would see the idolatry in his sleep. Just standing there, silent, watching. He'd wake up sweating, heart racing, but tell himself it was stress, too much champagne, bad seafood. Then the dreams got more specific. He'd see Emeka kneeling at the tree, hear the voice giving the warning, "Do not return." And then he'd see himself in the dream, standing in the shadows, watching, planning, a smile on his face that looked more like a wound. He'd wake up gasping. His girlfriend, Zainab, would stir beside him. "Baby, you okay?" "Fine," he'd lie. "Just a dream." But they weren't just dreams. They were memories, and something was forcing him to remember. The first real sign came on a Tuesday morning. Chibuike woke up to find his pillow soaked not with sweat, but with something else. Something that smelled like earth and rot and rain-soaked leaves. Red dirt. The same red dirt from the clearing around the idolatry. He jumped out of bed, heart hammering. But there was no explanation. No dirt anywhere else in the room. No trail leading to the bed. Just his pillow, caked with soil that shouldn't exist in a house sealed tighter than a bank vault. Zainab walked in, stopped, stared. "I don't know," he said, his voice thin. She looked at him differently after that, like she was seeing something behind his eyes that scared her. If you're getting chills right now, hit that like button, because this is just the beginning. Chibuike tried to ignore it. Threw away the pillow. Bought a new one. Convinced himself it was a prank. Maybe one of the staff playing games. But then it happened again. And again. Every morning for a week, he'd wake up to find red dirt on his pillow. In his shoes. On his bathroom floor. Once, impossibly, inside a locked drawer where he kept his watches. The staff swore they had nothing to do with it. Security footage showed nothing. No one entering his room. No one tampering with his things. Just dirt, appearing, growing. And then came the whispers. He'd be in the middle of a business meeting, and he'd hear it soft, distant, but clear. "Thief." He'd spin around. "Who said that?" His partners would stare at him, confused. "Said what?" "Someone just called me a thief." "No one said anything, Chibuike. Are you feeling all right?" He'd hear it in restaurants, in his car, in the shower. Always the same word, spoken in a voice that sounded like wind through dead leaves. Thief. Comment karma, if you believe what goes around comes around. The breaking point came 3 weeks after the dreams started. Chibuike was hosting another party. He'd become famous for them, legendary even. Politicians came. Celebrities. Business moguls. Everyone who was anyone wanted an invitation to Chibuike's mansion. The night was perfect. Music pumping, champagne flowing, people dancing under lights that cost more than a car. And then the power went out. Not just in his house, in the entire neighborhood. A blackout that made no sense. The backup generators should have kicked in immediately, but they didn't. The mansion was plunged into darkness so complete it felt solid. People screamed, laughed nervously, fumbled for phone lights, and in that darkness, Chibuike heard it. Not a whisper this time, a voice. Loud, clear, coming from everywhere and nowhere. Chibuike Okonkwo. The ancestors call you to account. The room went silent. Not because people stopped talking, they couldn't hear it. Only Chibuike could. His blood turned to ice water. You stole what was not yours. You betrayed the innocent. You built your kingdom on broken trust. His knees buckled. He grabbed the wall for support. The idolatry does not forget. And neither do we. The lights came back on. Everyone resumed partying, laughing off the blackout as typical Lagos electricity problems. But Chibuike stood frozen, his champagne glass shaking so hard it shattered in his hand. Zainab rushed over. Baby, you're bleeding. He looked down, blood dripping from his palm. But he barely felt it, because written in blood on his own hand, in letters that shouldn't exist, were 3 words: return. Or burn. Return, he screamed. Chibuike tried everything to make it stop. He hired a pastor. The man walked into the mansion, took one look around, and walked right back out. I cannot help you, he said, his face pale. Whatever is hunting you is older than my prayers. He hired a powerful babalawo, a traditional priest. The man came with charms and incantations and rituals that cost a fortune. He performed the ceremony at midnight, drew symbols on the floor, chanted in languages that made the air feel thick, and then, halfway through, the babalawo stopped. His eyes went wide. His hands started shaking. They are here, he whispered. Who? Chibuike demanded. The ancestors. The ones you wronged. The babalawo started packing his things, hands trembling so badly he could barely hold his materials. I cannot fight them. No one can. They want you to confess, to return what you stole, to face Emeka. I can't. Then you will burn. The babalawo said simply. Not with fire. With guilt. With consequences. With the weight of what you've done until it crushes you into dust. He left, and Chibuike was alone with his stolen wealth and his growing terror. The hauntings escalated. He'd look in the mirror and see Emeka's face instead of his own gaunt, broken. The way Emeka had looked when he lost everything. Food would turn to ash in his mouth. Literally. He'd bite into expensive steak and taste only dirt and regret. His cars started breaking down. Not mechanically, spiritually. Engines would roar like wounded animals. Steering wheels would burn hot enough to blister skin. Once, his Bentley's mirrors showed not the road behind him, but the path to the Udala tree. And the dirt kept appearing. Everywhere. In his bed. In his food. In his drinks. Red earth that smelled like broken promises and stolen blessings. Zainab left him. I don't know who you are, she said, tears streaming down her perfect face. But you're not the man I thought I loved. There's something dark following you. And I can't be part of it anymore. She was the last person who genuinely cared about him. After she left, the staff started quitting. One by one. They wouldn't say why. Just handed in notice and disappeared. Within a month, Chibuike was alone in his mansion, surrounded by luxury he couldn't enjoy, and wealth that felt like poison in his veins. Share this video if you believe betrayal always catches up to you. Then came the night Chibuike's world truly shattered. He was sitting in his living room, drinking straight from a bottle of expensive cognac, when he heard footsteps, heavy, deliberate, coming from upstairs, but he was alone. The security system showed no intruders. All doors locked. All windows sealed. The footsteps came down the stairs, slowly, each step echoing like a judgment. Chibuike's hands shook so hard he dropped the bottle. It shattered on the marble floor, liquid spreading like blood, and then he saw them, the 5 elders from the village. The ones who'd confronted Emeka at his party. The ones Chibuike had paid to fabricate evidence, to help him steal the lottery money, but they looked wrong. Their eyes were empty, not blind empty, like looking into holes in the universe. Their skin had a gray pallor. Their movements too smooth, too synchronized. These weren't men. These were something wearing their faces. The leader spoke, and his voice was the voice from the tree. Ancient and absolute, Chibuike Okonkwo. We gave Emeka a blessing with a warning. He broke the rule, and we took back what we gave. But you did something worse. You didn't just break a rule. You weaponized our justice. You used our covenant to destroy an innocent man. You turned sacred consequence into personal profit. Chibuike couldn't move, couldn't speak. Terror had locked his body in place. For this, there is a different price. We do not merely take back what you stole. We make you live with what you've done. One of the figures stepped forward and touched Chibuike's forehead, and suddenly, he felt it. Everything. Every moment of Emeka's suffering. The confusion when his accounts froze. The humiliation when the media turned on him. The betrayal when he realized his best friend had orchestrated his destruction. The night sleeping in the ruins of his collapsed mansion with nowhere else to go. The look on his mother's face when he had to tell her they'd lost everything again. Chibuike felt it all. Not as memory as experience. As if he'd lived through every second of Emeka's nightmare. He collapsed, screaming, and the figures spoke in unison. You will carry this until you confess, until you face Emeka, until you return what you stole, and beg forgiveness from the one you betrayed. Only then will the haunting end. Only then will you know peace. They vanished, and Chibuike was left gasping on his floor, drowning in guilt that felt like drowning in ocean water everywhere. Endless, suffocating. 3 days later, Chibuike did something he thought he'd never do. He went looking for Emeka, not to apologize, yet he wasn't that brave, but to see him, to understand if what he'd done had truly been as destructive as the ancestors claimed. He found him at a construction site, working. Emeka was mixing cement, his clothes simple and worn, his hands rough and capable. But there was something in his face that stopped Chibuike cold. Peace. Real peace. The kind money can't buy. Emeka looked up, saw Chibuike standing there in his designer suit, looking like a ghost of wealth. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Emeka nodded. Once. Acknowledgement without anger. Recognition without hatred. And Chibuike broke. Right there, in front of construction workers and cement mixers, he fell to his knees and wept. I'm sorry, he choked out. I'm so sorry. I destroyed you. I took everything. I used your trust like a weapon. And I can't live with it anymore. Emeka set down his tools. Walked over slowly. The workers stopped to watch. Emeka knelt down beside Chibuike and said quietly, I know. How? Chibuike looked up, face wet with tears, and snot, and shame. The ancestors showed me. The night I went back to the tree and lost everything, they showed me what you'd done. I've known for 2 years, and you didn't come for revenge? Emeka shook his head. Revenge is not mine to take. That belongs to forces bigger than both of us. I learned that lesson. And now, brother, you're learning it too. Chibuike grabbed Emeka's shirt. Make it stop, please. The dreams, the voices, the guilt. I can't breathe. I can't sleep. I can't exist. Make it stop. I can't. Emeka said gently. Only you can. By doing what the ancestors asked. If this moment hit you emotionally, subscribe to this channel, because the story's final twist will leave you speechless. That night, Chibuike did the unthinkable. He went to the police, walked into the station and confessed everything. The conspiracy, the fabricated evidence, the money laundering, the way he'd manipulated the system to steal Emeka's lottery winnings. The officers thought he was insane at first. Rich men don't confess to crimes. But Chibuike had documents, recordings, proof. He handed over everything. Then he did something even more shocking. He went on national television, sat down for an interview, and told Nigeria the truth. 2 years ago, my friend Emeka Okafor won $100 million in the lottery. And I, Chibuike Okonkwo, conspired to steal it from him. I fabricated evidence. I bribed officials. I destroyed his reputation and took his blessing. And I did it because I was jealous, because I was greedy, because I thought I could. However, the interviewer was stunned. Why are you confessing this now? Chibuike looked directly into the camera, his eyes hollow but honest. Because some debts can't be paid with money. Some consequences can't be escaped. And some rules exist not to limit us, but to save us from becoming monsters. The interview went viral within hours. Nigeria exploded with reactions: shock, anger, disbelief, calls for justice. But Chibuike didn't care about any of that. He only cared about one thing. 3 days after the confession, Chibuike stood outside Emeka's small house, holding a briefcase. Emeka opened the door, unsurprised. "May I come in?" Chibuike asked. Emeka stepped aside. They sat at a simple wooden table. Chioma was there too, watching with guarded eyes. Chibuike opened the briefcase. Inside were documents transferring everything back to Emeka. The mansion, the cars, the investments, all of it. Every naira he'd stolen, traced, and returned. "I can't undo what I did," Chibuike said quietly. "But I can return what I took. It's not enough. It will never be enough. But it's all I have to offer besides my confession and my shame." Emeka looked at the documents for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked everyone. He closed the briefcase. "Keep it," he said. Chibuike's head snapped up. "What? I don't want it. I don't need it." That money was cursed from the beginning, not because of the ancestors, but because of what it turned me into. What it turned us into. I have everything I need right here. He gestured to his mother, sleeping peacefully in the next room, to Chioma, sitting beside him, to the simple house that held more joy than his mansion ever had. "But," Emeka continued, "there is something you can do with it. Anything. Give it away. To people who need it. Build schools. Fund hospitals. Help families like mine used to be. Turn your theft into redemption. Not for me, for yourself. So you can look in the mirror and see a man instead of a monster." Chibuike started crying again. But these were different tears. Cleaner somehow. "And one more thing," Emeka said softly. "You need to go to the Udala tree. Not to ask for anything. Not to demand. Just to apologize. To the ancestors. For weaponizing their justice." Chibuike's face went pale. Will they forgive me? "I don't know," Emeka admitted. "But facing them is the only way you'll ever know peace." That weekend, Chibuike walked to the Udala tree. Alone this time. No bodyguards, no cameras, just a broken man seeking absolution. The forest was exactly as he remembered from his secret visits, when he'd spied on Emeka, when he'd planned the betrayal. But it felt different now. Watching, he reached the clearing. The Udala tree stood massive and ancient, its branches moving even though there was no wind. Chibuike fell to his knees in the red dirt. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't just break your rule. I turned it into a weapon. I used Emeka's mistake to justify my evil. I took something sacred and made it profane. I am so sorry." The wind came, gentle at first, then stronger, and the voice returned. "Chibuike Okonkwo, you have confessed. You have returned what you stole. You have faced the one you betrayed. And now you come before us. Humble at last." "Yes," Chibuike said, forehead pressed to the earth. "I come seeking not forgiveness, but understanding. I come to accept whatever judgment you deem fit. Silence. Then, your punishment is mercy. Chibuike looked up, confused. You will live. But you will live with memory. Every day, you will remember what you did. Every blessing you receive, you will question if you deserve. Every friendship you form, you will wonder if you've earned. This is your curse. To be always aware. Never comfortable. Forever changed. A calabash fell beside him. He opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a mirror. Small, simple. Look, the voice commanded. He looked, and saw not his face, but Emeka's. The way Emeka had looked the night he lost everything. Broken. Betrayed. Alone. This is who you were, the voice said. The man who could look at suffering he caused and feel nothing. The reflection changed. Now it showed Chibuike as he was now tears streaming, face twisted with genuine remorse. This is who you're becoming. The journey from one to the other is your redemption. It will take the rest of your life. And it will hurt every single day. But it is the only path forward. The mirror disappeared from his hands, but the images remained burned into his mind. Go, the voice said. Live. Change. Grow. But never forget what brought you here. The wind died. Chibuike stood, legs shaking, and walked back through the forest. He was no longer the man who'd entered. He would never be that man again. Comment forgiven but not forgotten if you understand this lesson. 5 years later, Emeka's community fund had grown into something beautiful. Schools in poor neighborhoods, hospitals offering free treatment, programs helping families escape poverty, and funding it all, managing it all, working tirelessly behind the scenes, was Chibuike. He never took credit, never sought recognition, just worked. He lived in a simple apartment now, drove a regular car, spent most of his time helping others. People who knew his story wondered if he was doing it for show, for redemption, for public relations. But those close to him knew the truth. He did it because he couldn't not do it, because every day he woke up and remembered what he'd done. And every day he tried to balance those scales just a little bit more, knowing they'd never be even but trying anyway. Emeka and Chibuike weren't friends. Not like before. That trust was broken in ways time couldn't fully heal, but they were something else. Something harder to name. Two men connected by blessing and betrayal, curse and redemption, locked in a dance of consequence and forgiveness that would last the rest of their lives. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, they'd sit together and talk. About life. About lessons. About the thin line between prosperity and pride. Between justice and revenge. And once, just once, Emeka asked, "Do you still have the dreams?" Chibuike was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. "Every night, I see the tree, I see you, I see what I did. And every morning, I wake up and try to be better than the man who made those choices. Does it get easier? No," Chibuike admitted. "But it gets more bearable. Because I'm not running anymore. I'm not hiding. I'm facing it." Emeka nodded, understanding in a way only he could. But here's the twist you didn't see coming. The twist that changes everything. 6 months after that conversation, something impossible happened. Chibuike received a package at his door. No return address, no sender name. Inside was a calabash. His blood ran cold. He opened it with shaking hands, expecting. He didn't know what. Another mirror. Another judgment. Another test. But inside was a single seed. And a note in that same unknowable script that Emeka had once received. The tree of betrayal bears bitter fruit. But from bitter fruit can grow sweet wisdom. Plant this. Tend it. And remember, redemption is not a destination. It is a garden that must be watered every single day. Chibuike planted that seed in the courtyard of the community center he'd built in Emeka's name. And over the years, it grew. Not into an udala tree, into something else. Something new. A tree that bore fruit once a year, small, humble fruit that tasted like honey and regret mixed together. And people started coming to that tree. People carrying their own guilt, their own betrayals, their own need for redemption. They'd sit under its branches and tell their stories, confess their sins, seek not forgiveness, but the strength to be better. And the tree people swore, listened. Some said it was blessed. Others said it was cursed. Most said it was both. But everyone agreed on one thing. It was a reminder that consequences are real, that betrayal has weight, that the ancestors are always watching, and that redemption is possible, but it costs everything you have and demands everything you are. Hit subscribe if you believe in second chances that cost first everything. So what happened to Emeka? He lived simply, loved deeply, built a life based on wisdom instead of wealth. His mother recovered fully and lived to see her grandchildren. Emeka and Chioma had 3 beautiful kids who grew up hearing stories about sacred trees and broken rules, and the difference between fortune and blessing. Emeka never became rich again, never wanted to, but he became something better. He became whole. And late at night, when his children were asleep and Chioma was beside him and the world was quiet, he'd sometimes think about that night at the udala tree, the warning he'd ignored, the blessing he'd lost, the lessons he'd learned, and he'd whisper a prayer of gratitude, not for the money, for the wisdom that came after losing it. Because some blessings look like curses at first, and some curses are actually blessings in disguise. And the real fortune, the one that lasts forever, isn't counted in currency. It's measured in character. But the story doesn't end there, because 2 weeks ago, something happened that made me realize this tale is bigger than Emeka and Chibuike. A young woman from Abuja sent me a message. She'd watched this video, and she confessed something shocking. She'd been planning to betray her business partner, had the documents ready, the lawyers prepared, the scheme perfected. But after hearing this story, she couldn't do it. I kept thinking about Chibuike, she wrote, about how he got everything he wanted and lost everything that mattered. I couldn't become that person. So I tore up the papers. And I confessed my plans to my partner. We're working through it now. It's hard. But I'm sleeping better. And she's not the only one. I've received dozens of messages. From people carrying guilt. From people planning betrayals. From people who needed to hear that consequences are real and redemption is possible, and the ancestors, whatever you want to call that force of cosmic justice, are always watching. This story saved relationships, stopped betrayals, changed lives, and that's when I understood. This isn't just entertainment. This is a warning. A lesson. A reminder from something older than all of us. The udala tree is real. Not as a physical place, though maybe somewhere in Nigeria it stands, waiting. But as a symbol. As a truth. That blessings come with boundaries. That rules exist for reasons. That betrayal always has consequences. And that the path to redemption is paved with confession, restitution, and the daily choice to be better than you were. So I'll ask you what I asked in the first video, but with a new question. What would you have done if you were Chibuike? Would you have confessed when the haunting started? Or would you have fought it until it destroyed you? Would you have returned what you stole? Or would you have justified keeping it? Would you have sought redemption? Or would you have chosen comfort over conscience? Your answer reveals everything about who you are and who you're becoming. Comment your answer below. Be honest. This is a safe space. And if this story moved you, if it changed something in you, if it made you think twice about a choice you're facing, subscribe to this channel, because there are more stories like this. More warnings from the ancestors. More lessons from people who learned the hard way so you don't have to. I'll be sharing them all. Stories of blessing and curse. Fortune and consequence. The seen and the unseen. The price of greed and the power of redemption. Stories that remind us we're not alone in this universe. That there are forces older than empires watching how we treat each other. That karma is real. Even if we call it by different names, hit that notification bell. Because the next story will shake you even harder than this one. It's about a woman who received a blessing that could save her family or doom her village. The choice she made. You won't believe it. And the consequence, it's still unfolding. Thank you for being here, for listening, for learning, for choosing wisdom over wealth and character over comfort. Remember, not all who wander are lost. But all who break sacred rules pay sacred prices. The ancestors are watching. Make them proud.